Hello, friends. Before you continue listening, I must warn you that there are tons of spoilers for Star Trek Picard Episode 2, Maps and Legends in this discussion. So you have been warned. If you are all caught up and you're wanting to hear all the stuff, then please proceed, and I hope you enjoy. Also, just a technical note, there were some issues with recording. We try not to cut stuff out on Starfleet Boy, so you're going to hear us struggle from time to time, and you might hear a couple of echoes here and there. I tried to minimize them as best I could, so I apologize to our audiophile friends, but we didn't get the audio quite correct on this one. That being said, I think it doesn't sound so bad. You'll have to let me know what you think. Enjoy. Welcome to Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal discussion about our beloved series, Star Trek. Separately. Testing 1 2 3. Okay, here we go. And are you recording?
I am recording.
All right.
Did I freeze?
No. Oh yeah, you totally did freeze. But as long as your audio is recording, it's fine. You'll probably unfreeze in a second. I can hear you still. It's so funny. Let's do the claps. Let's do the clap anyways. Okay. Oh, I won't see you clap, but it's okay. Fine. All right. Oops. 1 2 3 clap. 1 2 3 clap. 1 2 3 clap. Okay. Awesome. So you're recording your audio. I'm recording my audio. PJ is frozen at the moment, but I have a feeling he will unfreeze. Let me see if I can do something here. Oh, that's fine. PJ, can you talk? I can't hear you. Oh no. Major technical. Oh, there he is. Yes. Okay, cool. So PJ, it's totally cool if you can dim your light so that it's not so bright on you. I don't mind.
Is it really bright on your end? Because on my end it looks really dark. I don't know why that is.
I don't know either, and I'm not that good with.
Hold on. What does it look like now?
The Discovery is flying with light beams behind it.
No, and when you know what? I'm gonna unplug the camera because I don't know what's happening there.
Yeah.
It's becoming an inconvenience.
It's the synths. They're in your. They're like messing with your technology.
They're messing with my stuff.
We are back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Today we are focused on Star Trek Picard, fresh on the day of. This is our reaction. I don't call these discussions per se because they are kind of reactions. There's a lot of what's going on type of stuff. But I mean, they are casual and informal still, so that's fun. So this is our reaction to the second episode. What is it called? Maps and
Legends.
And Legends, which it's very appropriate, apropos. So yeah, we a lot to unpack here. Do you want to do the summary, or should I do the summary, or should we just talk about it?
I don't know why, but my other camera just activated. And
it's nice.
It's a really bad camera. I'm going to turn it off.
All right. It never activated on Skype here. I'll kick off the summary and you can chime in at any point.
Go ahead.
Or were you going to...
Wait, but will I start? I can start. It's okay.
You want to do it? All right, awesome.
I'm pretty sure I remember. Okay. It starts out with... on Mars at the Utopia Planitia shipyards circa 2385, about 14 years before the events of the actual show, and it shows the synths going to work on Mars on first contact day, and because it's a holiday, I guess they're kind of it's a vulnerable day for them because they're kind of relaxed, and it's I believe it's
a
like
skeleton crew.
A skeleton crew
Yep.
down there, and then we meet F8, who I love. I wish we saw more of him. He was great. How he interacted with the crew and how he had a personality, but he didn't have a personality at the same time. And
he was like a more advanced B4, but a little bit of Data with his like personality quirks. I thought.
Yeah.
Like when he was like, so my friend, I gotta do this. Sorry to interrupt your 7 minutes off, but my friend since childhood, named Shaka De Silva, who acts. He's been a performer for many years. I think he's done both stage and film, but you can look him up on IMDb. He is in this episode, and he's the guy that makes the joke that F8 doesn't get. So he's the guy who says, "What's brown and sticky?" and then F8's like, naming all these different like chemicals and things like that, which is very Data. I thought, like, that's like early Data in season 1 and season 2 would like go on these like kind of babbling things where he was trying to figure stuff out. So that's like definitely a personality quirk that reminded me of Data. But then he's also my friend, the first to like, well, you could go on, but he's the first one to get killed.
Man, that was a violent scene, wasn't it?
It was a really violent scene. I was very horrified. That's why I wrote that it was very surreal and wonderful at the same time to see my friend. But it's nice to say that like a person I've known since elementary school, since like the 3rd grade, is on Star Trek. And I've known about it for a while, but we were sworn to secrecy. So we only alluded to it, but now we can talk about it. And he's going to be on the show. He's going to come and talk about his experience and stuff. So I'm excited to have him on. Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, he makes jokes. I mean, he's there like interacting with the Planitia workers, and then what happens?
He activates or something.
That's right.
To him.
Well, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Actually, he activates. Like something happens to his eyes, and he like is on a different mission all of a sudden.
He hacks into the Mars defense system, and the attack on the shipyards proceeds. And it happens very quickly. I like how they illustrate this attack, because before it was a lot of tell and not show, and now they're actually showing what happens, and there's a lot of expense in just that few minute scene right there. I mean, it's very well done.
Just the shot of the Armada in the upper, like in orbit, was extraordinary and like cinematic and like big, and like it just gave you a clear indication of the scope of what was happening.
Exactly. And that's the flashback. And after F8 hacks into the system, the employees go crazy. They're like, "What are you doing?" And then he's just like, he blasts them, he kills them with this disruptor. And this is such a good use of disruptor violence in Star Trek that I've seen.
Except it wasn't even that's not even a disruptor. It's some sort of cutter, like a laser, like it's a tool. Yeah, it was that's why it's even
through them, like if he moved it across their body, it would almost like cut them. Yeah,
cut them. Yeah, it was meant to do whatever they do on ships. They probably like cut these amazingly, like, it's what is it called, titanium. Yeah, it's a welding tool of some kind. So yeah, it's nuts. He's like brutal. It's a very violent scene.
But I like how the beam like just cuts the hole straight through them, right, and doesn't necessarily disintegrate them in a puff or anything like that. That was pretty, yeah. And of course, he has to do away with himself at the end because it's got evidence. Yeah. Something is not right. Something is rotten in Starfleet. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's definitely the craziest like
opener I've ever seen on Star Trek. I can safely say that if I'm not. I can't imagine something else that came before this that looks better, that like felt as cinematic as this did and as real as this did. It was like I was pretty like caught the first time I watched it. I was like 100% riveted by it, and it was a pretty strong opener.
And it's the only action scene in the entire episode,
which was so amazing too. Yes, I haven't had a chance to listen to your video. I'm excited to you did your like, which we should plug. Even though we're giving the summary, I'm so sorry. I keep interrupting. I'm just so excited.
It's okay.
But I saw that you put up a video pretty early today, and I'll listen to it in my car ride to work tomorrow. So I'm excited to hear that.
Yeah, it's I just pretty much just go over the episode and say that I like it. It's not much.
Everyone, for a detailed summary, go to PJ's video at Boat Trek on YouTube. So check it out. So after the opener, you get the opening credits. I don't think I've talked to you since I talked to Sean and my friend Humbert, the doctor, and Ruben about the first episode. But what did you, and I might know this, I'm sorry if I forgot, but what did you think of the music and the opening titles of Picard? Like, what do you think of them?
I'm gonna have to interrupt you for a second.
Sure.
Because with all that screwing around I did with the camera, it turned off my recording.
Oh, no.
But you can use the base video up until this point, but I'll start a new one right now.
All right, cool.
So I apologize for the...
No, that's totally fine. I'm going to go ahead and...
Testing. Go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and clap again just so that we have that.
Okay,
all right.
2. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, count it. It's fine.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2,
Okay.
3. There we go.
Nice. All right, cool.
Okay, we got the opening credits. Recording now. Everything's good. Sorry about that.
PJ, you're killing me, Smalls.
It opened after the opening credits. It's on the Vineyard, Picard.
But do you not want to talk about what you think of the opening credits and the music?
Oh yeah. I never did talk about that with you yet. Nah, it's the music was a bit underwhelming at first, but I actually like the theme more and more.
You're getting used to it.
It really does grow on you.
Nice.
And, it's subtle. It's very subtle, and you have to pay attention to the very small, subtle details. And I believe the trick was in this theme was to not do something grandiose, to do something a little more weathered and mature. And yeah.
Oh my God, you're speaking like I feel like I couldn't have said it better. That's an amazing analysis of the theme. All right, thanks. I really wanted to know where you stood on that. That's cool. Yeah, it's a beautiful theme. Jeff Russo said that information about the soundtrack is coming soon, so I'm actually super stoked. Do you know how the Mandalorian
score of the TV show in itself is very, very, very good,
top notch? You know how the Mandalorian released a whole full soundtrack for every episode? Along with every episode of the Mandalorian, they also released an album for that chapter, and it had like an hour's worth of music on it. And I wish Star Trek would do that for Picard. It would have been such a great thing to have, like music to listen to the whole week while you're waiting for the next episode to come out.
Yeah,
but that's just me. Nice. That's just me. I mean, I'd give my money for that. So post credits, where are we?
On the Vineyard, Picard. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. It's either Laris or Laris.
I think it's Laris.
Laris. And
Laris.
Jaban
and Laris.
Jaban and Laris.
The Tal Shiar assistants.
The ex-Tal Shiar operatives, yeah.
Operatives, and they're his household staff.
Who fell in love and had to defect. I'm not sure about this because I didn't write anything down, but is there a hint that Jaban's mother and father owned Laris as a slave or something like that?
Oh, I didn't catch that. I've only seen last episode. I got to explore 4 times, but I don't know if I caught that.
There's some mention of her, not owners necessarily, but some kind of. And Zhaban remarks, "Yeah, my that was my dad and that was my mom." It was a weird thing. I got to go over that again. But anyway, they're going over the security footage, which was clearly tampered with, and Laris brings up the Zotavash, or whatever, however you pronounce that. And
it was the I wrote it down actually. Hold on, I'm gonna pull
the Zotavash.
It is the Jadvash. The Jadvash. It has a D sound.
Yeah, they're
the Jadvash.
They're apparently an ancient cabal that predates the Tal Shiar, and their job is to keep secrets that will blow your mind. It's like, it is kind of like, I think this is the first time. I think the closest thing I could think of is like the Illuminati, right? Like, is that kind of like in real life, IRL? That is exactly what they're an allegory for is our universes, our real world myth of the Illuminati.
Right. That
we don't quite know if it exists, but we've heard about it.
It's like the boogeyman, he describes it. He goes, it's young. They tell children about the Jadvash, like, don't do bad things or the Jadvash are going to get you. And also first year initiates into the Tal Shiar to scare them. So it's like, you think you're in the Tal Shiar, but there's another organization that's watching everyone. So you better... you better serve well, young recruit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I kind of love it.
There's a weird thing that Laris talks about when she says how, have you ever noticed that Romulans have no interest in artificial life? We've never even delved into cybernetics and all this stuff. Continuity-wise, that's not quite right.
Is that right? Is that so?
There is a Romulan officer in, I could be wrong about which season it is. I don't even know what episode it is, but I saw the clip today of a Romulan officer going up to Data in 10 Forward and talking about how Romulan cyberneticists will be fascinated by Data and all this stuff. So that's a conflicting thing, but then again, Romulans are so secretive. Maybe he knew about it and nobody else did.
No,
maybe they were secret cyberneticists.
That's actually genius. You just saved that. I was actually going to go on a similar route. I was going to say it could also just be that he was like messing with Data to get information, and there's no such thing. So
yeah, you can almost never trust what a Romulan says. Circa 2360s to 70s.
My sister, I watched the episode once in the morning, like at 2 in the morning when it first came out, and then I watched it just now with my family, and my sister says she doesn't trust anyone on the show except Soji and Jean-Luc and maybe Raffi, who we haven't gotten to yet, but she doesn't trust any of them, so that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But you were saying so, like, in this episode, she says there's really, but it, that's an interesting thing to explore further. But yeah, she definitely says in this episode that she sets up that there's like a deep loathing or a hatred towards AI, artificial life in general.
I speculate maybe that could be because they know it's always going to go to shit. If you go too far with it, it's always going to end up that typical sci-fi trope of evil AI and all this. Maybe.
Because even though that's the case where the Romulans have this like intense kind of thing about it, the Federation also has had some bad scrapes if you count Discovery, which you should. The Federation also had a bad experience with artificial life forms, and that's why in TNG Data seems to be kind of like a unique or is rather not doesn't seem to be, like, he is unique, and that's established also in Picard, because so far any of the cybernetic beings that they've created don't even come remotely close to being as sentient slash, as Data would put it, human as himself. I think, go ahead.
I like how it turns out that Noonien Soon was way ahead of his time. Even years later, they still can't figure out what the hell he did to make his androids so special.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually have a crazy idea about that I came up with. It might not be an original idea, but it is original for me. Like, I just thought about this. Like, I noticed that, like, in TNG, and we just did that episode recently with Data's mother. Have you seen that one recently? The one where he meets his mother and she ends up being an android herself, a Soon type android?
I remember it, yeah.
Okay, so in that episode, she talks about Data's childhood, and she talks about all these things, and the way that she describes it, it's very similar to how humans develop. So, like, when we first begin, because humans kind of aren't necessarily, we're conscious, but we may not be like fully developed when we're babies, and as a matter of fact, very few people can remember the very early stages of life. Like, I don't think anyone can truly remember being born, first of all, right?
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, Data's mother establishes in that episode that, and because Data has no memory of it, she says, but you had a childhood. I think there was a similar phase to what, like, B4 never grew out of, if you will, and what these androids seem to be in that kind of, like, childlike, I want to say, phase. And I think the real difference, the genius of Soong and his wife, not the android version, but the real Data's mom, is they actually probably raised their androids, like, taught them things, like, taught them how to act human, taught them how to be, like, up to a certain point. And you can tell Data's teachings are incomplete. In fact, he doesn't even have an emotion chip. They started out with, they started teaching him to emulate humans without feeling emotions. And so that's what he does. He's, like, really great at it. And so I think that's the genius of Soon, is that he actually raised Data and Lore. And, I think B4, he's still dubious. Like, I don't know his origins, but in that same episode, she mentions that there were 3 androids before Lore that they created that all failed. And so I speculate that B4 is one of those 3 androids that failed. And then Lore, of course, was a megalomaniac, and then Data they had to abandon. So Soong never actually finished his experiment, but Data was the first successful one. So I suspect that that's the difference, is that the Starfleet, since Data doesn't remember his childhood, he doesn't know how he was, like, made himself. He couldn't convey to Maddox and anyone else that, like, what you really have to do is, like, raise this android. Each android individually has to be, like, kind of nurtured and raised, in a sense, and if you don't do it, they don't develop fully, and that's what we're seeing, and that's why no one's been able to recreate what Soon did. That was a crazy rant, I apologize. But anyways, that's my theory on that.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're right. I mean, Soon, they had to develop, and that was the whole point, that he laid the foundation in the androids, and then the test was, how did they develop? And my theory is that maybe B4 was the first or the second, and he didn't go beyond a certain point. And I don't know if I think it was Lore next, and then he gave Lore emotions, and he's like, that's a bad idea. And then he created Data with no emotions and said, that's the happy medium, that's the best of the bunch.
Yeah, I think he and he meant to give Data emotions because he made the emotion chip for him, but that Lore stole. But I think he meant to give Data that later. So I think you're 100% right.
Yeah, but it was meant that he would eventually develop enough to somehow want to start having emotions. That doesn't always work out well for Data.
Right, but he did actually. You're absolutely like that's what he was striving towards, and so he does eventually handle it. He's able to turn it off at will, which is kind of a cheat, but still, it's a fair. It still fits that happy medium when you need data to be like completely data. Without emotions, that's what he is. But Daj is obviously the most advanced android to date, and also Soji. And in this episode, we get that clue of like there's a nest of them, which I think you may have mentioned sometime about the 12. I don't know where I saw this, like on Twitter or somewhere, but about the not the 12, but the hearts, the Queen of Hearts, or the all the queens in the cards in that dream that Picard has with Data might represent different androids that are out there. So there may actually be like other androids that we haven't met yet that Soji is protecting, whether she's doing it actually or inadvertently, you know.
There are definitely others because they hint at that twice. They hint at that in the first episode and the second episode.
Right.
So I think maybe that's going to become more and more apparent toward the end of the season, and that might lead into something next season maybe. Or maybe we might meet a whole bunch of these Daj and Soji-like androids, and they are all the children of Data.
Indeed.
He was getting busy without actually getting busy.
The next scene is that
actually Laris does that whole CIS thing in Daj's apartment and
exactly that scene, yeah.
Finds out there's been a huge scrub and cover up by whoever, presumably the Romulans, of course.
Yeah, the Jadvaj.
Jadvaj. It's funny how she comes up with that, and that probably is what they are. She just, no offense to the character, but she pulls it out of her ass. Basically, she's like. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of exposition, and the first and the second episode, I appreciate the fact that they do offer a lot of information, and it's none of this crap where it's like we'll withhold every little mystery from you for 5 or 6 episodes and gradually feed it. No. They're actually giving us. We understand who Daj was. Well, she's gone now. We understand who Soji is. We understand what Picard has to do. He's not doing it yet. It's a slow burn, but he's getting there. We're slowly meeting the characters. They're giving us a lot at the same time taking their time with the story. And this is one of those things that you're actually going to have to go back and watch all at once, especially the first 3 episodes, which are probably going to be, when you go back, like the movie that starts the series. Because everything feels like a precursor to the actual series right now. It's like we've seen nothing yet, basically.
Right.
And that's great.
Right. Yeah, it is pretty great. That's dead on. I liked seeing the Romulan technology in that scene also, the forensics technology where they're able to reconstitute like events based on like just like bio imprint signature stuff. Lots of great, by the way, that whole scene also had lots of great techno babble, and it introduced some pretty interesting benchmarks for where technology is at. Like the computer was so awesome. Like I wish I had a computer that thin and small that was on Daj's desk. And like while I agreed with Sean to some extent that like clear like clear displays where you don't have something solid in the background don't really work in real life, but the way that they visualize these computing devices that are totally different from the LCARs, they seem more like civilian based designs, like as if there was still an Apple maybe in the future, you know, or like a Microsoft. They seem more like that kind of stuff. But I actually just love it. And then just like hearing her talk about like, you know, very familiar ideas, like, you know, this is not something you need to be invested in Star Trek, but if you do like go deep into like some of the theories behind the technology and stuff like that's presented in previous Star Treks, you definitely see familiar connections here, like subspace, and they talk about subspace, and she's able to trace the signal. And then they even use real world examples. Like it's true, when you get a new phone nowadays, you have to introduce yourself to the digital assistant. Like I have Siri, so Siri makes you like say hello and different sentences so that it understands how you speak. And so that was brilliant. I thought that was a concept that I think like very many people, almost like the word layman comes to mind. A layman person can understand that concept because they've done it. Like that's a very common experience today. So you don't have to be like crazy techie, or even a child like might be inspired by this and want to code because they want to create a cooler GUI than the one they saw on Star Trek. So there's like a lot of, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of like potentials here for like, this is the stuff that like excites me about Star Trek. To a degree, it's not like it's not like the most important thing about Star Trek, but when it's done correctly, it just works so beautifully. And I thought it was like one of the situations where it did work well.
Yeah, the actor who plays Laris is very good at technobabble. I was calling her in my video earlier. I was calling her Laris. I don't know
like
why.
Clarice, because it's like Clarice. Oh my gosh, that would have been great if we had video, but it's all right. Audience will have to imagine.
I love listening to an Irish Romulan.
I have to say her.
You're going with him, Jean-Luc. What are you doing?
You're doing really good at that.
What are you doing here, baby?
Are you daft, you stupid? Are you daft, you stupid gob of shite? That's really intense. But
I like when she says, oh, what did she say? Oh yeah, cheeky fuckers.
Yeah, she does say
her
that.
Her accent's not that strong though.
I wanted to ask you. I'll tell you my opinion about the cursing, but it is new. It did feel awkward to me, even though I was already used to it and I accept it. Like in Star Trek Discovery,
I
felt
went back
awkward.
10 seconds. I didn't think I heard it.
Yeah,
I was like, did she just say that?
And later with the Admiral too, that was like a little. I'm not sorry, the Admiral.
Oh, you couldn't miss that
the
one.
CNC.
That was very in your face.
The CNC. Yeah, like I was like surprised. I hope Jean-Luc never curses. I don't mind other people cursing, and I probably will be disappointed by this, and it'll probably be done really classy and tastefully. But I just kind of hope that Jean-Luc doesn't curse at all. It'll preserve like that in him, because Data curses. He says, "Oh shit."
Picard has never said anything beyond. Doesn't he say "merde"? Like
mad. Oh, he does say mad. He does say it in French. You're right. I forgot about that. That's true. In the early
if
seasons.
He said that in French, I'd accept that. Yeah. That would be cool.
I agree. I would actually accept now. Since he does say it in French, he may as well say it in English. But I do hope he says it in French, and I think that he might, because he does talk in French a lot more in this than he did in TNG. But yeah, so that scene ends, and we learn from that they're able to find out not exactly where Soji is, but that she's in space, and that's when Picard realizes he needs to get back into space.
Yeah. The only thing they know is that she's not on Earth, which narrows it down
to anywhere. The next scene is the scene with the Doctor. From the Stargazer Doctor, what's his name, Moritz?
That's not the next scene.
Yeah, it is. After the
they cut back to the Borg reclamation site for a second.
Oh, my bad. I totally skipped the scene. You're right.
When they're going, the camera's like gliding through the cube, and we hear a voiceover of Soji and Narek talking about how she's saying it's not a Borg cube, it's a relic. It's a Borg cube is something that's alive with drones, and this is not that. And he should know better, because he says later on that it's a harmless thing, right?
Well, she calls it an artifact, I thought, but
artifact,
a relic or artifact, which is an interesting thing, because like artifacts suggest like things like archaeology and like anthropology, and in a sense, that's kind of what they're doing on there. They're like in a weird technology. It is interesting because we think of archaeology as like digging in dirt to find old things, but archaeology could be like deconstructing a Borg cube, or like things like that too. It makes sense.
Have you noticed that Star Trek is never good at pillow talk? Like,
I wanted to ask you about that.
When two people are in bed together in Star Trek, or about to have sex, or like leading up to it, it always feels very icky to me. They never do it right. I don't know what it is. You watch, especially Next Generation. Next Generation has some creeper dudes hitting on Troy and stuff, and every time they try to do something sexual or romantic, it never.
I think that's
right.
untrue for Riker and Troy, and even Worf and Troy are pretty good. I mean, like,
oh yeah, those are the exceptions. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that those and Worf and Jadzia are really good, and I guess Cassidy
Deep
Yates
Space Nine as a whole. Yeah, that's a totally good example of a.
Yeah, so
that's probably the only romantic relationship besides that and Odo and Kira. Actually, you know what? Actually, Deep Space Nine, when I think about it, is chock full of actually like really good romantic relationships. It's probably the only Star Trek show that does multiple.
Right.
Nog and what's the Domjot girl?
Oh gosh.
Forget.
Oh no.
Not
Alita.
Alita. Is that right?
Yeah, Alita, remember. I'm pretty sure. And it's not
Cisco and
Cassidy Yates.
Why can't I remember?
Cassidy Yates.
Yeah.
Yep. But also you have
Narek and Soji. No. It doesn't work for me. Sorry.
In the original series, you don't really have any like romance. You just have like flings, right? Like there's not even like any long-term romances on the ship or anything like that. But then in the movies,
Nurse Chapel had a hard-on for Spock.
I think but like that wasn't that like under like drugs or something. Like weren't they compromised or something? Wasn't that the Naked Time?
I always thought it was a thing where she pined after him or something.
Maybe that's true. But so the closest they got was in the films. You do get like obviously you get Captain Kirk and Jillian is a good one. Then you get Captain Kirk. You never actually see it, but you get Captain Kirk and Dr. Carol Marcus, which it's post-divorce, but you still see that he was in a loving relationship and he had a son. So it's not quite the same way, but I did buy it and it did feel romantic. Like it doesn't seem icky anymore by the time the movies come around. Like he's definitely like icky in the in the show, grabbing women and like pulling them close to him like really hard and stuff. But by the films, he becomes, I think, a lot better at being romantic. And then there's a suggestion that in Star Trek V that Uhura and Scotty have like a deeper relationship than just friendship. So
yeah, it comes across as very uneasy and weird and forced, that thing with two of them in part 5. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Really?
I don't like she's
you never liked it?
She gives him lunch and he's like it's weird.
He is awkward.
You know they're doing something in that movie. They're kicking boots.
But Scotty at the same time is worried about the ship. Uhura also dances naked on a sand dune in that movie. It's very provocative.
He's given her all he's got. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my gosh, PJ, that was a great joke. Now we've truly digressed. So we get back to the bed of Narek and Soji, and you're saying you didn't like it at all. I thought it was sexy. I didn't think it was like necessarily creepy, but I wasn't necessarily like into it either. Like I will say on Discovery, like Hugh and Paul, I like that relationship. I like the way that romance turns out, even though it goes through this like crazy scenario of death and regeneration and like, all the nutty shit that happens to them. I think it's one of the relationships that was the strongest, that showed same sex, like couple. So it was a first, and I don't think it was done creepily either. But yeah. Do you think that's because we're not supposed to like Narek?
Well, I was going to say, we know it's a ploy. We know he's full of crap. And, in fact, there's later on in the episode when his true colors start shining, and that's when it's like, okay, I see that's the real Narek there. But, he's manipulating her. You're just waiting for her to find out that he's bad. You're just waiting for that revelation, and that may come sooner or later, who knows. But she's eventually going to find out.
There's something about Soji that feels different than Daj. Like, I think Daj truly didn't know she was an android and all of that. I think Daj was which we find out something interesting about Daj later on.
She speaks multiple languages. instinctively almost. You notice that?
Yeah, Soji.
She spoke Romulan. Well, she understood Romulan, and she spoke a language to the nameless species of the Borg. That I don't know if that was Romulan she was speaking, or that was actually the dialect of the actual species, and he didn't recognize it as anything.
I happen to have seen that clip for the next episode that was on the Ready Room. It was on Twitter. Do you want to know about it, or do you not want to know about it?
I'll go ahead. Yeah, I'm gonna watch it anyway.
Okay, cool. So in that clip, by the way, audience, if you haven't figured it out by now, we're not holding back on spoilers for anything. So we may have ruined DS9 for you. We may have ruined Discovery. Like, there's a lot of spoilers in this. But just in case you hadn't noticed by this point, I thought I'd point it out. There is a warning that goes on in the beginning. But in the clip, Hugh, they reveal Hugh in the clip, and he goes up to Soji and he says, the fact that you spoke in the Nameless's language to it in his language is extraordinary. So I think we might get some interesting answers about that in the next episode. So yeah,
I think Hugh's going to eventually discover what she is, and then meet up with Picard eventually somewhere down the line, and
at some point. I mean, we've seen that in all the trailers and stuff like that. So
them running in the hallway.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't even met 7 of 9 yet. She hasn't even come up yet. There's so much that's in the What I like too is like it feels like in Discovery trailers you only saw clips from like the first couple of episodes, really. And here, I feel like they probably gave us clips from like a few episodes, like little snippets that will make sense later when we see like episode 5 or episode 6. It's kind of exciting.
Yeah, probably up to about episode 6.
Yeah,
that we've seen in the trailer so far, because
it makes sense.
He has yet to assemble a crew, which I'm assuming is going to happen in the next episode.
Right.
But anyway, on Earth, Picard gets a visit from his doctor, Maurice Benayu. Apparently I assume he was the former chief medical officer on the Stargazer, because he talks about the missions he went on with Picard, and he has like these very McCoy vibes about him.
Yes.
So I love that. Anyway, he medically refuses Picard's certificate for interstellar service due to signs of aromatic syndrome, although that specific thing is not mentioned.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much inevitable at this point. And this is foreshadowing. This is serious, like foreshadowing of Picard's demise and possible death. Definitely not in the first season, I don't think. But I think they may lead up to like a second season where it starts to really take effect, and he really relies on the help of his friends or something.
It's really interesting what's happening, because it 100% parallels All Good Things without Q. So like I think what's interesting about this, and it's another kind of thing that I was explaining some things to my sister because she hasn't seen TNG in a while, and it made me think like, so like in All Good Things, right? Q kind of gives Picard a preview of his future, and in the future he's suffering from the aromatic syndrome. He works on his vineyard, and he comes across information that he has to that's like an existential crisis, that in the case of All Good Things, it's like the universe is gonna all universes are gonna be destroyed, right, or something like that.
Yeah,
I can't remember the exact details, but he has to, like, despite having the aromatic syndrome, he has to go and convince a lot of people that he's not crazy, that he's not like, this. It's kind of a similar vibe, like how he has to go, like, ask people for help, but he's doing it different because he knows already an alternate future, and he told everyone about the alternate future. And what I find fascinating also is that in that alternate future, Deanna died because of some terrible thing that happened in the past, right? Well, Deanna doesn't die, we know that, but Data's dead instead, because Data's alive in the alternate future. He sits on the Lucasian chair at Cambridge University, but Deanna's missing. And here we have the ghost of Data. We have like Data's, and she was a part of it, like everyone mourned her and talked about it. And here it's the same kind of thing. So in a way, like, so far, I don't think it's going to stay like this. Like, I think it feels very intentional that Picard is paralleling some of the events
of All Good Things.
All Good Things, and that's why it gave me goosebumps thinking about it, because it's like we kind of know what's going to happen, but we really don't know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, and it's the same thing, like where, he has to go and he kind of has to get cleared from Dr. Crusher or something like that. There's the whole medical thing comes up, and here's in this case it's Dr. Benayu. So he's doing things differently because he knew the future, how it was going to be, and he's doing things differently, of course. But that's all in his head, like he knows all that. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's funny how it does parallel All Good Things in many ways.
I'm glad you like that little observation.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying, especially with one of the coolest things about the first kind of glimpses in the first trailer of Picard was that it was on the vineyard. We knew it was going to be him on the vineyard. So right away, we were thinking All Good Things, like first thing I thought, would Geordi show up in the first scene? Like he doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't exactly parallel, because of course they make it clear in All Good Things that that's an alternate future. That and it's a weird time travel thing, because each timeline that he jumps to is independent of itself in some ways. So
right, it was pretty interesting.
It's cool that now the actual events of his real future do slightly parallel what he went through in All Good Things.
I love that. And then even up to... So we got some good news. Zhaban mentions Geordi, Worf, and Riker. And so he mentions Geordi as a possibility, like, why don't you ask these people for help, right?
So he didn't die in the
So attack. He didn't die. So Geordi's around
been on holiday
somewhere.
Maybe,
He could have... And he might regret that. Like maybe he feels some kind of remorse. For whatever reason, he was not on Utopia Planitia when it happened. And neither. Well, so Worf, we already saw like a little bit of him in that news clip or whatever from the past. But it also mentioned, and Worf hates Picard and Riker. There's a rift between them in All Good Things. So I wonder how Worf, if he ever comes back, how he'll be in this version of the future. It'll be very interesting to see how those characters are. We're going to meet Riker and Troy, of course. We know that. So
yeah, like episode 9 or something. No, not
and
really.
if Picard parallels like how the show, like that episode that in the 2 hours, like you don't even meet Crusher, I don't think, until episode like the second half. It aired as one big movie, but like if you divide it into like first hour and second hour, you don't even meet Crusher. So I'm holding out hope that like they might be stretching this parallel out for 2 seasons, so we may not see Crusher again until season 2, as she suggested on Twitter. So I think they're following some kind of like guide that like connects somehow to All Good Things, which is exactly what I would love to happen. So I approve if that's the case.
Well, I don't know about stretching into this storyline, stretching into the second season.
Not the storyline, but just paralleling how like you don't see Crusher in All Good Things till way later in the episode. Do you know what I mean? Like even that I don't know, because she's not in this episode. Like, what is she doing? Is she the captain of the Pasteur? Did she actually go?
I think characters like Crusher and Geordi and Worf, although they may be referenced in this season, none of them are relevant to the immediate story. The fact that we have maybe not, I don't know. And that's the thing, we don't know, like Worf could pop up and help Picard in like the very last episode, and Geordi shows up, and it's going to be this thing where our fucking minds are blown. But the main crux of this season, the fact that we're getting Hugh and we have to get introduced to him, and then Riker and Deanna show up, and we're going to meet their daughter apparently. So we get all of this, like it's almost like this. At least the first half or so, we're pretty much just going to be introduced to new and old characters, and it's going to be like just Picard going on the walkabout journey. And I think in the second half it's going to get really, really intense, because it's going to have to end with him taking down the Zhat Vash, right?
Oh my gosh, maybe if we even get a resolution. But
Or
yeah,
maybe
he's definitely going to face
he fails,
them.
and that leads into second season. Who knows?
But we're jumping ahead of ourselves a little bit in
Let's
terms
get back
of
to
the
the summary.
Let's the never-ending summary that I love. I like the summaries. Some people are like, just skip the summaries, but I'm like, I think it makes sense. It's a good way to remember some interesting things.
The next scene.
Well, anyways, but
goes to Starfleet.
Wait, can we not leave that scene yet? I just want to say a note that like the acting, the performance between Patrick Stewart, and I'm sorry I don't know the actor's name. Let me pull it up. But to me that like without ever having met this character before or seeing this character before, you instantly the way that the two performers like played off each other, you instantly get the vibe that yes, in fact, this guy served on the Stargazer. And something interesting happens here because you could tell there's like deep love and concern for Picard, but then Picard kind of orders him. He kind of uses his like old rank and his like position and his like just like how Dr. McCoy would do anything for Captain Kirk if he asked him to, like the reserve activation clause, even though he's like complaining all the time and he's calling Kirk out on his shit, he still does follow him on the mission or take his orders, right? And I thought that was really beautiful and like also connective in a way to like military life and like loyalty and things like that. And he basically orders him, he's like, I need you to clear me to go to space. Can you do that? And obviously he does it. We know it's implied that he does it. He doesn't. I don't think he says it, but
not that it matters anyway.
Not that it matters, because Picard's gonna do whatever the fuck he wants anyways. You stand against me at your own peril.
That was pretty intense.
It was so good. It's such a good scene. Anyways, isn't that where we go next?
Yeah, he goes to Starfleet headquarters to ask Admiral Kirsten Clancy, discount Meryl Streep.
But before we get to that,
she's good.
Before we get to that, nailed it on the music when he walks out of the transporter gate. Exactly. Nailed it.
Yeah, I know.
Nailed it. 100%. Nailed it. And then we had seen that scene where I think he's an ensign, gives him the visitor pass. That was the very first kind of scene that was leaked out way back.
The first thing we ever saw of Picard.
Picard was this scene, so that was kind of like a little bit of like finally seeing it finish. Of course it makes a lot more sense, but before it was like someone's phone and it was like really bad quality, and you just get like it was pulled down by CBS, and so if you saw it, you saw it. If you didn't, it was gone. It was a cool thing, but yeah. So that guy's like, oh, Captain Picard, nice to see you. Admiral Picard, nice to see you up and about again. But he doesn't like exactly know who he is, and that's kind of sad. But after 20 years, what do you expect? The guy's hardly 20. The ensign might not even be like 20. He might be like Wesley's age when he went into the academy or just graduated from the academy. So it's like a very young person. So he might have been a child during the attack on Mars, which is kind of interesting too.
Yeah, maybe he's just the one dumb guy who doesn't know who Picard is. I mean, they got the Enterprise D hologram hovering above the goddamn thing. He should know. It's only played for laughs anyway. So.
Picard
gives him that look.
Before the Enterprise D, we get the Pike part, the second Pike era Enterprise, and then it cuts to the D. And I wonder how do you feel about that?
I don't know, like they're gonna insert all this stuff into Picard, and I've heard people complain about you're putting the Disco-verse Enterprise in there. You have a Zahian in there, which was invented by Discovery. You had too many lens flares, which is like Discovery. And yes, that sometimes there are like the Disco Cab, and the disco shuttles everywhere. I mean, these are just, I believe, you can chalk these up to oversights, and they'll learn. They'll learn. Don't worry.
I think so, but also I kind of feel like it's not an oversight. Maybe it's intentional. I think they're trying to say, well, at least so up until now with the we didn't talk about this, but like we do get the Nemesis Argo style shuttles also on Mars. So that's kind of cool. But like especially a taxi, I can kind of see it being like if it's an old, like, you know how some people buy Hummers after they've been retired from the military, or like vehicles that the military once used, then civilians buy them and then turn them into like various like civilian things. So I could see a taxi being using an old shuttlecraft, like someone. I think it's also shocking and surprising that taxis even exist in the future, by the way.
Like, what would have been cool if the cab driver was a holographic doctor from Voyager. It's like repurposed for cab driver hologram.
That would have been a great gag. I agree with you. That would have been I didn't know about that, by the way, until they mentioned it about the mining or something like that, and then I looked it up and I was like, oh, okay, because I haven't gotten to that part in my I don't know if you know, but Voyager's like a big blank area in my Star Trek knowledge, so I'm filling in the gaps. But I think I'm willing to. I like this idea. I don't remember if it was E.C. Henry or Trek Yards or who proposed this, so I apologize for not knowing where I got. The internet's taught me this, but I kind of like the idea that like the Enterprise, all the ships of that era are very modular. Like you could just completely rearrange them or reconfigure them in a very short amount of time. So like maybe. For whatever reason, they discover that kind of strut didn't work out, so then they tried a different kind of strut and a different configuration. So even though the outside of the Enterprise and the interior of the Enterprise changes, and there is stuff to back that up, because I know that all the bridge modules are modular, so like they basically just pop in a new bridge module and boom, you have a whole new bridge. But it looks on the outside, it looks similar to how the bridge modules are supposed to look, the same basic shape, but they all have different like things. So everything's modular on starships of that era. We never see that really too much in TNG, but even the Enterprise D later on, they add a third nacelle in that same alternate future. You're able to add a third nacelle, which didn't make a lot of sense the way it's configured because they did it in a rush in real life. But still, you could do that and add like a new weapon, a railgun, underneath the saucer section that can destroy future Klingon battle cruisers. So I mean, I'm willing to accept it, and it doesn't bother me as much as it did when I first. That's not the Enterprise. So I'm okay with it at the end of the day. I'd rather have the budget go towards making sure that they're fleshing out the stories like they seem to be doing, and there's that right balance being struck of this is just such a compelling story that you're willing to ignore obvious gaffes or incongruities or even things that you don't like, period. They might make sense, but you just don't like it, and that's how I feel about the Enterprise that we see.
I'm so sorry.
What happened? Did you stop recording?
Audio cut out again.
Oh,
I don't know this never happened with Sean. I don't know what's going on here. But anyway, while you were talking, I started recording again, and to avoid doing the whole sync up thing again, I'm just gonna say that on the call recording it is 59 minutes and 17 seconds.
Thanks. Did I lose all the other of your audio though? Did you start again? You never saved the other audio?
There's 38 minutes recorded. I don't know when it cut out because I had I'm literally seeing you and monitoring the audio at the same time, and then it just I looked and it was gone. And then while you were talking, I looked at it, was 38 minutes, and I was just started it again. I don't know what the hell's on the
but there is
I
stuff,
heard everything you said, though. I was paying attention.
That's okay, but there's stuff recorded, I guess you're saying, that I just have to figure out where it lines up, right?
You got a job ahead of you, fella.
That's okay. I'm really good at this
sorry.
stuff.
I feel so bad.
You don't know this, but I'm actually a synthetic life form, and so when I hang up, I go super fast on the editing. I'm able to like go.
I will not take my eyes off this audio recording.
Yeah.
Ever again.
Your computer needed to be restarted, I think, but don't do it now.
Where were we in the episode?
We got onto that tangent because
the
of
Admiral.
the Enterprise hologram. I went on another rant.
But the most interesting part of that whole scene is the confrontation with the Admiral, of course.
Yeah, that is the most interesting part of that whole scene. And it's
like,
another beautifully performed scene. Like, the tension was so good and everything else.
He's like, give me a ship, give me a thing, give me a little crew. And she's just looking, and you can her demeanor the whole time is just like, okay, sure, okay, and then she just lets him have it, and she says the sheer fucking hubris. Do you don't think I was watching the Hollow there the other day? You were running your goddamn fucking mouth about bullshit. I'm sorry, I should have said on. You get out, it's not your house anymore. Get out of here, okay. That's not what happened. I'm paraphrasing, but
no, I know
that was the feel of it. It was just like it was a big confrontation, and I like how he's like, what did he say? You said it earlier.
Oh,
you'd be wrong to challenge me or something like that.
Well, he says challenge
me at your peril.
At your peril,
and she
Admiral,
goes, peril?
And she's like,
there's no peril here.
She's just like not having it at all.
No.
He does get to her a little bit. We find out later, but like. That is one of the saddest scenes I've ever seen in Star Trek. It broke my heart.
They seem to have a contentious history, though.
They seem to have a contentious history. They look at Jean-Luc. She looks at Jean-Luc as a has-been, and almost like it's sad because he was the greatest captain. He I think that Jean-Luc, I think that it's sad because this is a man who saved not just Earth but the whole like Federation on numerous occasions, right? Like he saved them from the Borg. I mean, like the flagship of the Federation was the Enterprise D. It would be really sad if even the Enterprise is no longer the flagship of the Enterprise. That would be like heartbreaking, but I hope it is still the flagship. Like, what if it's like the Bozeman now or something? It would be interesting.
God,
no. But even Kirk didn't have to go through that. He retired, and like, and was in good favor throughout his whole life. And so here we see a very sad kind of thing. It's like our hero, like this guy who we really look up to, and then later they call him the Hermit of Labar, which I changed my Twitter handle to. But there's just this like sadness to Picard, and it really broke my heart. But it's beautifully performed by Patrick Stewart. He's just such a fucking great actor. So good.
Yeah, he's really good in this role.
I mean, it's his role
that made his career.
But like he defines it still. Like he's still pushing it forward, and it's just like no one else could do this. There's no other person on the planet. It's such a unique position to be in because it's like it's very rare. I think, I don't know, I'm not a performer, but I can only imagine that it's very rare that you become like so synonymous with a character that you are that like whatever you do defines that character, and it's very amazing. It's very cool. Like a lot of people like to say, like they bring the word, like a lot of writers like to say that they love it when a performer can bring their words on paper to life. And what's interesting is like, just I can only imagine, because I know Patrick Stewart was a part of the writing room, to a degree, and like spent a lot of time with Michael Chabon, and so that there was a lot of information that like Michael Chabon took directly from Patrick Stewart, from whatever his observations were from playing him for years. It's a great thing to witness as a human, as an audience member.
Yeah, I'm glad to have him around still. I mean,
Some would protect Patrick Stewart at all we should I apologize if you ever listen to this, Mr. Stewart, Sir Patrick Stewart, but we should like put you into some kind of stasis in between seasons of Star Trek Picard to preserve you. No, that's terrible. I don't think we're in, Patrick Stewart probably gets a clean bill of health just like Picard does, and thank goodness I don't think he actually has aromatic syndrome, so I think we're gonna have Sir Patrick around for a while.
Patrick Stewart himself suffers from vertigo. He has dizzy spells and stuff like that.
Yes, and I know that he has embraced medicinal marijuana for its medicinal purposes. He's an advocate of marijuana, so if it were legal here in Florida, I would recommend it to my parents. They have various ailments that they suffer from, which I wish they were able to treat with marijuana. I don't know. We just did a plug for legalizing marijuana, but that's okay.
It's all legal in Canada now. So.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Canada's and nothing bad it seems to have happened, right? Like everyone didn't go crazy.
Well, it's ruined many lives.
What?
No. I'm joking.
Jeez. You're like, it's ruined many lives.
It's caused an uptick in grocery sales.
That's fantastic. So he leaves very sullen from the Admiral's chambers, and then he goes from there back to Chateau Picard.
Well, the next scene is on the Borg cube again.
Right.
On the reclamation site.
That was a good scene, the next scene.
We get a sense of a typical workday where that Romulan soldier, who looks pretty cool, by the way, is giving that speech about safety and...
Didn't he look like a blend between like Romulans and Remans? He's the most extreme kind of prosthetic-y Romulan I've seen so far.
Well, yeah, he had the bulky forehead. But the thing he's made him different from most Romulans that we've seen is his weird hair. He has it all shaved inside.
We finally get this, which is something I think a lot of people wanted, was to see because a lot of these people are civilians too. There are military Romulans there and stuff like that, but it seems, but there's a lot of civilians too, and we see a lot of different hairstyles on the Romulans. We also see a lot of different like variations in their looks too. Some look like Narek, where I don't think he has any ridges or anything. He's like a classic era, for lack of a better word, Romulan, right?
The makeup on him is very subtle,
yeah.
They're making it a point, and even they do this with there's Andorians in the background.
In the background, yeah,
they're making
I
it
saw
a point to show that there are variations in the species.
Is it Catan or Catan? How do you say or Cadian? Did you see her or him?
I didn't know quite what it was at first. I've seen.
If you watch,
she shows up twice, I think.
Yeah, totally. And so the one time you see her really clearly is when she walks through some kind of like sensor thing when they're going into the gray zone. By the way, did you catch that they're referred to as the Romulan Free State now instead of the Romulan Empire?
Yeah. And
so
the ex-Borgs are called XBs.
XBs. And what's interesting is that so what is going on? Did the Romulans reluctantly become Federation, for lack of a better word, Commonwealth, not exactly like a Federation member, but they're called the Romulan Free State. They're allowing humans and others to come study the artifact. So there's definitely not a war going on. There's definitely not a tension of that kind going on between the Federation and the Romulans. And the Admiral in that scene, when she's yelling at Picard, she says the Romulans were our oldest enemy. So she says it in past tense. So it's interesting. We don't quite know exactly what's going on, but there's a hint that there's obviously not, a contentious maybe piece.
It's assumed that the reclamation site has been around for 15 or 16 years or something like that, or maybe even longer. So,
right.
So before the attack on Mars, but after Nemesis. So after the events of Nemesis with Shinzon and all that, and So maybe the Romulan Free State evolved after the destruction of Romulus, and that they started allowing humans to work and different species to work in the reclamation site after that. And it seems like they're harnessing technology for trade or barter or sale of some sort, maybe.
Yeah, and they seem to be doing something to either the Borg advance themselves, because some of the Borg technology looks a lot different from what we're used to seeing, or they've augmented the technology in some way, because like what are they called? The recharging stations have white lights now instead of green lights. There's just like a lot of subtle differences, and also the Borg ship, the cubed interiors look more like walls rather than a lot of ducts and pipes running around. You know, like It used to look very H.R. Geiger. I don't know how to describe it any other way. The Borg ship, like a lot, and now it's a lot more like Thor, but you know. like the Dark World or something like that. You know, it's got a Tesseract-y kind of look to it. I don't know.
Do you recall when that Romulan says, "If your thing turns green, run"?
Yeah, that was pretty.
You know that new girl that Soji meets? Something's going to happen to her.
I have a feeling,
and maybe Soji saves her or something like that. But
yeah, that's definitely a little foreshadowing. It seems like is going on in that scene. But another good part of that whole scenario is when Narek says some people are here to feed off the dead, some people are ghosts, like referring to like the, I guess, Hugh, you know, in a sense. And these other Borg that work, they show like clips of former Borg working on things, welding stuff, like, so that backs up that they're augmenting the cube. And then some are like you that are like he says some are like you that are trying to looking for resurrection or something like that. So that kind of like to me hints at perhaps, and this is like really wild speculation, but I wonder if we won't get a resurrection of Data himself at some point, and maybe that's what Soji is supposed to do. I don't know, but that's a wild that's a crazy theory. Wow. And I wouldn't mind if Data, like, I know a lot of people are like, let Data stay dead so that it's like not repeating the same kind of tropes as before of like, you know, death and resurrection in science fiction. But in a way go ahead, sorry.
I think we're going to see Brent Spiner one more time somewhere in the season as a little send-off. I think because they showed everything in the trailer of every scene that he was going to be in that was in the first episode. And I think that was a way to bring people in and set up the whole Data daughter thing. And he's not around, and he's not going to show up, I don't think. It's going to be too expensive to bring him back, unless he's reincarnated. Or, well, I guess Soji, in the end, is going to be the continuation of Data.
It's very possible that that's the case. I hope, I don't know, obviously, but I hope that he does come back in at least a few more dreams. I like the idea that Picard gets clues from dreaming about Data. In a weird way, and I feel like that's like a neat thing, and then it fits in with the aromatic syndrome, because quite possibly his actual, like, those dreams are like somehow linked to that disease, and so
and maybe it explains some of his behavior too. Yeah, as the doctor points out, and thinking back now, the fact that he goes into the Admiral's office and he does show the hubris. He is. He actually is. He's going to be helped, and he doesn't quite realize, you know, this Admiral doesn't like me, probably never did. So
right. Well, and then he yells at her. I mean, like, that's kind of like those outbursts. Like, that's not like Picard did yell sometimes in the past, but never like he does now. He kind of gets angry a lot. He gets triggered, I guess you could say, is the right word for that. And it feels like it's involuntary somewhat, like as if it would be. You know? Oh, here's something interesting. I just said allow incoming video. I don't know what that means, but it might mean that you can send a video now. But you don't have to. You don't have to turn on your video.
Hold on, let me see.
That's weird. Nope. That's all right. How's the recording going? I'm gonna check in on the recording every now and then.
I'm checking in on it now, and everything seems to be okay.
Yay! So, what was I gonna say? So yeah, that's a great thing that I would like to see more of Data. But that's exciting. I would be accepting of either way. Like if Data, I would definitely want more Brent Spiner and more Data, but I could understand that if they want to keep all those things limited to not seem like too reliant or not use it as a crutch, I wouldn't mind either. Like it could go either way for me, and I'd be satisfied as a viewer.
Yeah. Let's get back into the summary.
Yeah. So next, he's sullen. He gets out of Starfleet, and then is the next scene where she calls.
No, we're way past that. We're one scene ahead of that now.
Oh yeah, we were back on the cube. I keep skipping the goddamn cube. Why do I have like a mental block on the?
Well, the episode keeps jumping between the cube and the vineyard, the cube and the vineyard. So now we're back on the vineyard, and Dr. Girardi is visiting Picard to give him information.
Oh yeah, that's right, and we get that.
And she's looking at a novel,
Isaac
Asimov,
Complete
Robot by Isaac Asimov, and he sees it. And he remarks that he never really cared for sci-fi; that he just doesn't get it.
Which is ironic. Yeah. That's really funny, but yeah, it's a cool thing, and it totally fits with how we know Picard, because he's like a Shakespeare guy,
and he likes old-fashioned detective
stories. Yeah,
Big
which
Goodbye.
is kind of interesting. The Big Goodbye.
Dix.
Dixon Hill. We talked about that for the first episode. There was a lot of that kind of vibe as well, because he's sleuthing it out. Like he starts going into detective mode, and it's very like, part of his character. The way Picard is.
Wouldn't it be cool if there was a Dixon Hill episode in next season?
That would be like the best thing. Could you
just
imagine?
For shits and giggles?
Like, that would be so amazing. Can we just have, or maybe for fun, because we haven't seen a holodeck yet, right? Like, we haven't actually seen what holodecks are like now, so that'll be really fun to see. I predict that holodecks will be networked now. So, do you remember how on Discovery, this was not like the case, it was not the technology in Discovery, but they did that cool mashup scene where half of the frame was like on the Klingon homeworld, and half the frame was on Discovery, and you had Ash and Burnham talking to each other. Well, imagine if holodecks could be networked, so you could like experience a holodeck adventure with like someone on another ship, or someone back home.
Much how like you can play online video games with people all
exactly
around the world.
Exactly. So I've that's my little technology prediction of holodecks, and if they didn't do that, maybe they'll do it in season 2, because they should. CBS, I give you permission to steal this idea, but you probably already came up with it. It's a very natural idea. What else about that scene with Girardi? She gives a lot of information. We find out that Daj is probably only 3 years old, and that her whole entire existence was made up, which explains something about the mom in that scene. Remember how she glitches out? I think the mom was just like a video recording, like a la how we've seen before with another Discovery callback, but how we've seen with the Control AI. You know what I mean? So like Maddox would totally be able to create a fake mother program that Daj and Soji call and talk to.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how like there's these like setups going on where like they show how it's feasible for Daj to have thought she was a real girl. Which is crazy.
You're gonna hate me.
Why? You stopped recording again?
No. What happened? When I tried to test the camera.
What happened?
I just no. It's okay because you were talking when it cut out, so my stuff isn't cut off. But it's a third recording now you have to deal with. You know what? I'm gonna splice them together for you. No, I don't know.
No, don't do that. It's actually easier for me to get whatever you send me and figure it out. Trust me.
Okay.
Because if you start splicing them together, then it's actually better, and almost like I'll show you one day how I edit. But if you send me separate audio files, it's actually a lot better. So do not worry, my friend.
So
whatever you can send is fine.
1 hour, 20 minutes, and 5 seconds for this one.
Okay.
But don't worry. But the cutoff happened while you were talking, so I restarted it while you were still talking.
Okay. So I show 77 minutes, and then on the video recording I show 1 hour 18 minutes. So it's okay. So audience, this is a very technically challenged episode. I hope I can save it because my audio on Skype.
This is my fault for trying to make the camera work.
It's okay. But my Skype audio it's too bad because my Skype audio is pretty shitty. So I don't know. We'll see what we could do. This is gonna be a challenge. I don't think I'll be able to publish it tonight. But anyways,
you're like, I'm never working with this guy again. Damn him to hell.
No, that's not true at all. No, as Picard would say. But anyways, I liked all that stuff with Girardi and getting some more information about Dahj and Maddox. And so Picard, after that meeting, decides that he needs to go find Maddox. He's not even like...
There's certain information about Dahj that we find out that she was probably created 3 years ago and that her
I said all that.
Okay, I was distracted while the thing that was the part I missed.
Shit.
Okay, well, the next scene is the cube again. Vineyard cube.
Also, it was nice. I thought it was beautifully done when it was Vineyard Dahj's quarters. That was really done well too. Because there was a little overlap when she's talking about the what are they called, the Zhad Vaj.
Oh, there was it was intercutting between
her Picard's desk in his vineyard and Dahj's the apartment. So they do a lot of that, and it worked really good actually. Even though I don't seem to be able to remember the cube, but now are we at that scene where they're taking apart? Yeah,
she's witnessing a deborgification, I guess,
yeah.
And on an unknown humanoid whom the Romulan doctor refers to as nameless, and Soji doesn't like that because, she thinks they're all special, and she has a big heart and all this stuff, and she seems to speak to the drone in the language, in its native language, which you confirmed that is the case.
Right. And she calms it down. Do you hear the heartbeat get really crazy and then it slows down again? Which was kind of a cool background thing that they were doing. Did you notice that?
I didn't notice that, no.
Yeah, so at first, so you first hear the heartbeat sound and the monitor's going doot, 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 like that, and it matches with like you hear an actual heartbeat as well. When they're pulling off the eye prosthetic, so it's like if it's painful, and then she goes over to him and she says, "Now you're free," and it calms. His heartbeat goes back to normal, and Narek is kind of watching all this, like interested.
It's pretty cool to see how gruesome it is when they remove that eyepiece.
Yeah. I didn't think it was going to be that gruesome because it wasn't that gruesome on TNG, but yeah, it was definitely gruesome. I don't know how it was. Actually, it was gruesome, like when they poke frickin' Picard's eye and stuff. Yeah, never mind. All that stuff is pretty gruesome.
They could never show the extent of the violence.
Of the blood. No, yeah. That's definitely true. That's an upgrade, if you will. Like, it's a different show altogether right there, and I don't mind it. I think it's done very like limited and tastefully, as tasteful as that kind of violence can be.
Guess where the next scene takes place?
The vineyard.
The vineyard. Toward the end of the episode, it breaks up a bit. We go to some other locations, but yeah.
Yes, but this is where she dropped. So it cuts to her dropping the tea service and yelling at Picard. What are you, some kind of crazy guy? Is it the dementia?
No, you're skipping ahead a few scenes.
Oh, I'm skipping ahead. Oh, no. What happens next? I forgot.
The next scene is Picard taking out his old communicator and calling Raffi.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Who they don't say in this episode, but she is actually his former first officer on the Verity. And
tell me about the tell me about the Verity, because I didn't read the Countdown comic books. Do you mind sharing with me and the audience what's up with all that?
Well, it's set in 2385, I believe. Yeah, and
so
Picard was an admiral serving aboard the Verity, and she was his first officer.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And two of them get captured in the comic, and they eventually get away, and everything's good. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't read it, but
what do you mean? We're spoilers galore here. Come on, I don't mind spoilers.
You know what?
I have to read it though.
The comic is not that interesting. Yeah, I got the 2 first issues, and then I saw somebody's video on the 3rd issue, and I was like, oh, that's how it ends. That's what it's all about. It's kind of like it's a hostage situation, and then they get out of it, and that's pretty much it.
Why is she pissed at Picard? Do we know?
None of that is explored in the comic, but whatever falling out they had, it's probably going to be explained.
It'll be revealed, obviously, yeah. And it's not like a heavy falling out, because she's like, is that the 86?
Yeah, that's 4 scenes ahead.
Okay, what? Tell me. It's
funny how that happens, where it's like we meet her and then the episode's over. We don't get that continuation. We're gonna get it in the next episode, I guess.
But the episode actually ends on the brother-sister thing.
Yeah. But before all that, we meet Commodore. Oh. The Vulcan character.
That's a good scene.
And she's on call with Admiral Clancy, who's concerned about Picard.
Good, Mike. All right, so audience who watched the video, you're gonna see me blow my nose, but you won't hear it, which is good. Except PJ heard it, and I interrupted him.
That's okay. This is where she refers to him as the Hermit of Labar.
Yeah,
and she's very cold and stern, and she makes it clear to the Admiral that if Romulans were running a clandestine operation on Earth, then I would know, and then you would know, and everybody would know. It seems like she's overplaying it a bit. Like, okay, we know you're bad. We know that if things were going down, you would know about it. And this kind of puts the Admiral's concerns to rest, but, Then
well, so I thought she was a very good Vulcan. She's probably a Romulan, obviously, the Zhat Vash and all that stuff. But I like that they subtly show you that she's a Vulcan by showing the IDIC symbol in the beginning of that shot. So you're like, is this a Romulan serving in Starfleet? No, it's definitely a Vulcan. Well, Commodore.
Considering how old apparently the Zhat Vash are, they could be Vulcan led.
Oh, that's an interesting
Maybe the
theory.
Vulcans are the real, or at least a certain Vulcan cabal, and because if it predates the separation of Vulcans and Romulans, I don't know if they ever lived on one planet, did they? I don't know.
Yeah, the Romulans, the legend, I think as I know it, or the lore or whatever, but I'm not sure about this, is that Romulans left Vulcan because they did not agree with the teachings of Sirach and felt that emotions should be retained and not purged, and so therefore that difference in philosophy led to their separation. And then you didn't know then the Vulcans didn't know what happened to the Romulans until much later when they realized, oh, there's a whole empire, and so on and so forth. And in fact, no one had seen a Romulan since that separation, I don't think, because I think that's suggested in Balance of Terror, if I'm not mistaken, where they're like, look at Spock, like, why the fuck does that guy look like you? And then he explains that whole thing. But my memory's a little rusty on that. But anyway, she's amazingly obvious as a villain. It's true. She's definitely a bad guy. And she even is surveilling Picard, and I do like though that it looks like there's going to be a confrontation at some point between her and Picard, because is this the scene now where the do we go to another scene before we get the scene where she calls in her assistant or whatever? What's her name? Rizzo.
No, we're back to the vineyard again.
Oh, this is where the tea. This is where the tea falls, right?
Yeah, and she's like,
Okay. Yeah.
"What are you going out there for, Picard? Oh, you take him with you, boy, to Jesus." But
And you can both
heaven
die.
and saints preserve us.
What part of Romulus does that accent come from? I'd like to know.
The Irish part of Romulus.
On Doctor Who, there's a joke because the Doctor has a North English accent, and he says every planet has a North. So,
Oh, no.
so maybe that's the case.
We've always had aliens with different regional accents from Earth, anyway. So, it's just the way the universal translator works, maybe. Or maybe she spent a few years in Ireland.
She could. It's the first place she learned English.
Yeah.
Was on in Ireland. She landed on Ireland, and then Picard discovered her on one of his trips.
It'd be really funny if she started singing like in Dublin's Fair City and all this. No, that's going too far. Sorry, but that's too much.
If I'm not mistaken, both actors, Zhaban and what's her name again?
Laris.
Laris. You got me thinking of Laris. Laris and Zhaban. I think the actor, his name might be Ian McShane or something like that. So he might be from Ireland or Scotland or something like that. Yeah. McShane sounds like an Irish name. I don't know.
He looks like he's Irish or Scottish, something like that.
Okay.
He looks European.
Interesting. A Euro Romulan. We're gonna see. We haven't even met frickin' Elnor yet. Oh my god, there's so much that hasn't even happened. But yeah, so
Picard wants
she's
to leave
like
to find Bruce Maddox. Basically, he wants to go
right.
off. And what is it? Zhaban, he suggests that he seek the help of his old pals Riker, Worf, and Geordi, which confirms that Geordi is alive.
Yeah. Which was heartwarming, at least.
But the way Picard explains it off, he's like, he said, they would do that for me, and it would put them in a compromising position because he knows they wouldn't refuse him. But he says, and then Zhaban is like, well, you need somebody who doesn't like you or something like that. And he's like, well, right. I've already made the call.
The call, which is really great. The humor is so good. It's so sophisticated. And it's kind of like it's really good humor. I like laughed out loud in that moment, I think. And the other thing is that like, it's also going back to that parallels idea. It's different from what he did before. The first thing he did before was like enlist the help of his friends, right? Like in the alternate timeline that Q shows him. So it is interesting that he makes a different choice here. And this is like another like road not taken, road versus road taken. That kind of idea, which is kind of cool.
And it's funny in All Good Things, as annoyed as they are with him, like crazy old man, they really do actually. They don't refuse him in any way. They tolerate him knows. To the full extent.
And he actually knows that. That's like legit what they would do. Like they would actually, and I think basically, the whole idea is that they all die at the it's like, so no, I hope they don't. They should be preserved forever in legend. Maps and legends.
In the next scene, we're introduced to Lieutenant Rizzo, who is a Romulan operative.
Right. Posing as a human.
And she meets with the Commodore, and they are involved in the whole conspiracy. They're probably the Zadvash themselves.
Right.
And
the Zadvash.
We find out that the Romulan operatives that were sent to get Daj were actually under the command of Lieutenant Rizzo. And Commodore is very disappointed in her. She's given her a second chance. She's like, you're on your last legs, and this Narek guy, you gotta keep him in line. He better not fail. And yeah.
And then I like that. Did I mention that I like that scene where she's like, I'll take care of Picard? And she's like, no, if anyone's gonna take care of Picard, when Picard needs to be taken care of, it's going to be me.
Do you think
which
it's
is
going to come down to a fight between the two of them?
Yeah, 100%.
She'd clearly kick his ass. He'd have to use a weapon.
Picard is going to be a badass. He's saving his strength for that. Like that moment. It'll make sense. I know it. But she's you know, she seems like an older performer too. I don't know if she's as old as well, she could be much older than Picard. Picard's like in his 90s, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
He's 93 or 94.
And she could be hundreds of years old because she's a Vulcan. You know, she could be near 200 years old. So they might be, you know, similarly matched there. But I do think that there's some kind of like showdown that's going to happen, because I feel like, even though this might be something that like a lot of people are going to say is predictable, but Picard definitely needs to like be redeemed to Starfleet. It's just too sad to see that Starfleet doesn't care about him, and that the commander-in-chief of Starfleet would disrespect him.
Yeah, we skipped over that part where the admiral says that 14 members of the Federation, 14 planets in the Federation didn't want Starfleet to help the Romulans.
Right,
and that
so they had to make
it was pretty much an ultimatum, like help the Romulans or lose a significant part of your Federation, and therefore significantly weaken it, while at the same time helping a former enemy. So you can kind of understand the position they were in. It was a very stuck between a rock and a hard place.
It was a very tough call, yeah. But Picard's unwavering that he says like we should have done it. Like he's so convinced that like it would have been the right thing to do. So it'll be interesting. I think they're gonna keep giving us little snippets of what happened to create the rift, like from both perspectives. Like so far we've seen
flashback to the Verity, Picard on the Verity.
I think I have a feeling we're gonna get that kind of stuff. It might be interesting, like for sure. I have a feeling that we're gonna get interesting things like that because Patrick Stewart is no stranger to de-aging software. Like, you know what I mean? Like they've definitely done
and
it
Ian McKellen
before.
were the first ones anybody ever noticed it on, and it was terrible. And they've come a long way since.
They've come a long way since. YouTubers are freaking de-aging nowadays. Like it's such a it's such a ubiquitous technology. It's kind of cool. So we get that scene, and then we get the final
getting
scene,
a disco
right?
cab.
No, that's right. This is not the final scene yet. That's right. So now we finally meet Raffi, which is awesome. I like her.
Greets him with a weapon.
And
he turns away very coy, and he's like, "Whoa, Romulan secret operatives!" And she's like, "Is that a bottle of '86 Chateau?"
Did you see The Mandalorian?
Yes.
I think we probably talked about this, but you know what it reminds me of is like when the Mandalorian is talking to is it Cara Dune, and she's like, "Why would I go help you?" And he's like, "There's Imperials involved," and then she's like, "Okay, yes." Okay. And it kind of reminded me about that, like where he mentions like Romulan operatives, and then all of a sudden that like piques her interest. Like she has a beef with Picard, but she has an even bigger beef.
Well, in the Countdown comic, they took her and Picard prisoner. So there's one beef right there. If that's considered,
that makes sense.
Canon, anyway. I don't know. You never know with these comics.
It's true.
If they want to do something in the show that contradicts extended material, they'll do that.
Yeah, extended material is always disposable, isn't it? Right?
It can always be compromised.
Yeah, it's what do they call it? Beta canon.
Beta canon. Yeah. So the last scene is Rizzo meeting with Narek on the Borg cube via hologram, and she's like, "Yeah, baby brother." So they're siblings, and she tells him to make progress or else, and that's pretty much how that ends.
Yeah, it's pretty true. By the way, I never know how to say it's Raffi, but we haven't heard her last name, but it's like Musakar or something like, or Musakar or something like that. But she's played by Michelle Hurd, and Michelle Hurd's pretty awesome, and I think she's if I may, as a gay man comment,
I thought it was.
I think she's really pretty.
I thought it was pronounced. I could be. I have no idea. I've never heard it spoken out loud. I don't think. I think it's Raffi Musquier.
Musquier. Oh, I like that.
Musquier.
Musquier.
It could be Musquier. Who knows?
I like that way better. It just kind of flows nicely.
Or Musiker. I think it's
Musiker.
Musiker.
Musiker's a cool pronunciation too. All right, that's way better than Mussiker or whatever I was saying. It sounded kind of, but we'll see what it is. What kind? Do you know anything about that name? Is that like a regional? Is that a region specific name? Is it French? Is it German? What is that?
No, I've never heard it before. I just assumed the ER was like it had a French inflection or something.
Flexion or something like that.
But it could be Musiker. Musiker sounds... Musiker kind of makes a little sense when I say it.
Hopefully we'll find out.
Musquier. That sounds weird.
Musquier.
Musikier.
The actor that played Dr. Benayoun, his name is David Paymer, and he's very like... he's someone that we've seen a lot of.
He's always that actor, you never know his name, but...
but he's in everything. Like, he's in basically like everything. But he's in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, for those who are watching that show.
He plays a real prick in that. I watched that show, and he's very good. Well, he's not in it a lot, but yeah.
And then let's go back in time here and see what he did in around the time of TNG and see if there's any like interesting shows. Yeah, nothing that I recognize from like way back in his past, like in the 90s yet. Oh, Godzilla the series, that's cool. Oh, he was on the Larry Sanders Show. That's why I know him. That's interesting. Okay, so he was on the Larry Sanders Show. I don't know if you ever watched that.
I did, yeah.
And then Cagney and Lacey, apparently he was on one episode of that. So yeah, he's been around for a long time. He was great. I liked him a lot.
I believe he was also on the Orville at one point.
Oh, is that why he looks familiar from recent times?
I could be wrong.
Let's take a look here. When did the Orville? It doesn't look like it's on there.
I've seen him in some other sci-fi thing. I know that. Unless I'm.
Is Room 104?
He's like Clint Howard. He's always this guy that pops up everywhere.
Was Room 104 science fiction?
Room 104. Is that the one with Samuel L. Jackson and...
Oh, I don't know. He was on an episode of that.
Oh, yeah, that TV show. Yeah, no, I didn't watch that.
Perception. Yeah, I don't see anything obviously sci-fi, but he was on Law and Order. Everyone's been on Law and Order.
I've seen him as a lawyer in something recently in the past year. Like a...
Was there anything like... I feel like our discussion took place during our... summary/reaction, which I kind of like, but is there anything that you could think of or that you have notes of? Did you take any notes? You said you didn't take notes, I think, right?
Not really. I did up a basic summary for my video, but
I think we covered everything about the episode. I think that was the most thorough summary that's ever been done. I really enjoyed it, though. I really enjoyed going through it with you like that. So do you like, I guess this is the part of the show where we kind of like rate it. And, I don't know, what would you have rated, since you weren't on my Starfleet Boy discussion of it, but what would you have rated, on a scale of 1 to 10, for the pilot, not the pilot, but the first episode?
The first episode, I would give a 7.5 out of 10.
Nice. So where does this one rank for you? Where does it go from here?
The second episode, I give it an 8 out of 10.
Dang, it got better. That's what everyone wants.
Yeah. Well, so far
That's
it's
amazing.
I don't want to give like too high because
yeah, you got to kind of be like,
the first episode was good. It didn't blow me away, and I find this one, for the total lack of action in it, which I don't really care about all that much, really. I just like a really good, intriguing story. I like the investigative nature of this episode. The fact that we get answers, we find out, we meet new villains, we get new information about Daj, we get new information about the Cube, it's like I said earlier, it's an information dump, but it's done in a very clever way, and they're giving us a lot in the first 2 episodes, yet the pacing is pretty slow, which is fine because they're taking their time with the story. They're not. I understand the first episode to me feels like it has to rush through some things. Like I thought, like what happened to the security with this whole Dodge thing on the roof, and the cameras didn't see her. What was that all about? And the first episode glides over that so quickly that I didn't think they were going to really explain it. But the second episode,
and she does where she's like, yeah. We didn't talk about that in our summary, but she's like, does that look like disruptor fire reflected in the railing? Like she's critiquing
her cover up.
Her, well, like maybe Rizzo was in charge. You know, it seems like just Rizzo keeps fucking up. Like you know, like she's not meeting the standards of Commodore O's deviousness here. But yeah, you're 100%
Rizzo
right.
is going to kill Commodore O, or Commodore O is going to turn around and kill Rizzo at some point.
And Narek, what's going to be his fate? I like all this setup that's happening. There's a lot of good questions.
I would like to know who their brother is. Who's the brother that died? Who is that?
So it can't be Nero, right? Because someone said Nero. Is that what someone said, or did they say like? Because it can't be, because he only died a year ago, according to Narek. So it has to be someone that.
Perhaps the falling out that Picard and Raffi had something to do with the brother. Some kind of confrontation with the Romulans.
This could be possible. Who knows? That's a possibility. So we get a preview. By the way, did you see the little teaser for the actual preview for the next episode that's at the end of Picard?
They don't show it on Crave, but I did see it on YouTube after. Like,
you did see
30-second promo thing.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to
basically shows him getting his crew together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how Agnes ends up as part of the crew, because right now like in that scene she gives him all this information and then we don't see her again. So but I like her. I like that character. Dr. Girardi is pretty cool. So and we do need a cyberneticist.
The very last scene in that episode, I bet you next episode 3, is going to be them finally all on the ship, ready to go, and Picard says engage, and boom, credits.
Engage, just like the scene we've seen in the trailers, right?
Yeah.
That would be pretty awesome.
I think
I think
they're going to Beta Z.
Oh, do you think that's where they live?
I think that's where Riker and Troy are, because
that's what I'm saying. Do you think that's where they live?
He meets up with Seven, because in the trailers, right? You know where Riker lives, in this old-fashioned kind of place. Remember when Seven shows up and everybody assumed that was in Picard's vineyard? That's actually in Riker's house.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure. Because you look at Riker's house in the trailer, it matches up with the room that Picard is in and Seven walks in. And that room that Seven walks into, where he's pouring up the liquor, that's not his study. There's different lamps, there's different everything in the room.
Well, good sleuthing. We'll
the fact
we'll confirm that
we see Picard with presumably Riker's daughter, and that's how they get introduced to Elnor. And you know the whole part where Picard's
that's it. No, don't tell me anymore. I don't want to know more.
This is all in the trailer.
I know it's all in the trailers, but I didn't notice it, and now I'm feeling like, oh no.
But that's the thing.
Stop.
We haven't seen nearly any of this stuff yet, and we're almost 3
that's
episodes
in the trailers,
in, right? So,
so let's not. Let's not talk about it.
They showed us.
You got me too
in the trailer.
Too cautious. Yeah.
They could have easily never shown us anything of Seven, but they showed that in the very first trailer, and that's got to be at least
true.
End of episode 3 or 4 or something like that.
Who knows? But don't speculate. Your speculations are too good. I'm just saying your speculations are too. Your eyes are too good, PJ. You're making me nervous. I don't. Isn't that crazy? I actually I like not knowing as much as possible about Picard, even though it is fun to speculate. But I kind of want to savor all this stuff. It's really good. I just want to point out that Hanali, which is the correct way to pronounce her name, Hanali Culpepper directed Maps and Legends also, and I think you pointed it out earlier that there definitely are lens flares and things like that, but overall I couldn't help but notice just how lush and beautiful, and I like the idea. She was interviewed and she said she wanted it to be warmer tones, like more reds and things like that, and you definitely get that impression. It's like a whole and like it is, like a lot of us complained. I did, Sean did, I don't know if you did, but like Discovery was just like really dark in tones, like, and she mentions it. She says Discovery's very blue, lots of blues, lots of blue tones, and this is a lot of like warmer tones, and you could totally see it, and it's very bright. I love it.
Yeah, Discovery has a very cold and sterile look, and this has a very warm and lived-in look.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Not knocking Discovery for it, like that's Discovery's look, and I accept that. But I'm just saying I'm glad that this show didn't follow the aesthetics of Discovery, because I don't think it fits with this show. And I just feel like they nailed it. Like this is the way Picard should look, if there's such a thing to say as that. It just feels very right and natural. Did you watch the Ready Room?
Not yet, no.
Okay, cool. It's very neat. Akiva Goldsman, I want to give him a little shout out because I was very impressed with the way he talks about the show, and you could tell he's extremely invested in Star Trek, especially in this in TNG and in Picard, and so I liked a lot of the stuff he says. I have to go back and watch it because I kind of was listening to it in the background when I was driving, so I have to actually watch it and see it again, and I'm looking forward to that. All right, we better cut this discussion because it's almost 2 freaking hours. Is there anything else you want to say or promote or talk about other than your video, which everyone should go check out on Boat Trek?
It's Boat Wreck.
I always say Boat Trek. Boat Trek.
I know.
Even though I know it's Boat Wreck.
I don't care.
I know, it's Boat Wreck, but it's like Boat Trek,
It's
Boat
a
Wreck.
humble little channel.
It's a humble little channel. But your latest video had over 100 views when I saw it, so that is pretty nice.
I just all I know about Picard is I can't wait to see more of the Laris, the Irish ditty.
Do you have a crush on Laris? On Laris?
I actually really like her character.
Yeah, she's a great character.
Take this food with you.
Yours is a little bit more like
mine
Bog.
is extremely exaggerated.
Yours is a bit Father Ted.
There's like 17 different kinds of Irish accents. Do you know that?
There are. It's a very diverse country.
In Newfoundland,
regions,
alone, there are at least that many dialects.
Now, folks in Newfoundland, a lot of them have Irish heritage, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I thought so.
Irish or English.
Irish or English heritage. Very cool, very cool. All right, you gabba shite.
Hi, TT, hi.
Hi, TT.
Burn them all.
Next time you say you want to go into outer space, I'll throw this teapot at your head. Sorry. We crossed the line into Drunk Space 9 there for a second. PJ, it was so much fun talking to you. Thanks for this, because I know I want to process these things with a friend, and it was really nice to have you to talk to about, even though you're going to make it extremely difficult for me to edit this. It's all right. It's all right. I forgive you. You're a good friend, so I forgive you. All right, folks. Tune in. We're probably going to have more discussions. As I said in the beginning of the show, my friend Shaka De Silva, Shaka When the Walls Fell, who was in this episode of Picard, at some point we're going to have him on the show talking about his experience. So I'm really excited about that. Also today, I don't know when it's going to be up, but today, Trek on the Tube, Sean and I spoke to Larry Nemeczek. And that was really cool, and I'm excited for when that comes out, because it was a fun time. And then if you like this video or want to have a comment or have something to say, have a theory of your own, please comment down below, like this video, and share it. And subscribe if you want to see more of Starfleet Boy. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
And we'll see you next time.